Okay. Child, listen. I need y'all to sit down for this one because what I'm about to tell you is absolutely wild. Max B, the wave god himself, just got publicly humiliated at Madison Square Garden in front of thousands of people, kicked out like he was some random troublemaker, and the footage? It's spreading like wildfire across the internet right now. But wait, that's not even the craziest problem. Because while Max is dealing with that embarrassment, some so-called Boston goon is out here making mafia-style threats online, demanding Max, quote, check in, or face consequences when he touches down in Boston. And nobody even knows who this man is. Then you got Cameron exploding on his podcast, exposing secret beef, hidden pressings, and a conspiracy of hate that's been brewing for years. Akademiks is out here flaming people left and right, calling grown men, quote, jars of relish with glasses? I mean, come on. And Meno's firing back with insults so brutal, I can't even repeat half of them. And through all of this chaos, PD7, the album we've been waiting for like it's the second coming, is still not here. Pens are convinced there's a music industry conspiracy blocking the release. Loves, this is not just drama. This is a multi-layered disaster. So before we dive deep into this absolute mess, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel because trust me, you're gonna want to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. All right, here we go. So let's back up for a second and talk about where we are right now with Max B. Because to understand this drama, you need to understand the timeline. Max B, real name Charlie Wingate, is a legendary figure in New York hip-hop. The man literally invented the wave. French Montana, A$AP Rocky, so many artists have borrowed his melodic style, his ad-libs, his whole vibe. He's influential. But Max also spent over a decade in prison on a murder conspiracy charge. He got out in 2021 after his sentence was commuted, and fans have been waiting ever since for him to reclaim his throne. And allegedly, that reclamation was supposed to come in the form of PD7, the long-awaited album that's been teased, delayed, teased again, and delayed again so many times that it's starting to feel like a cruel joke. Now, while all this is happening, Max has been trying to rebuild his public image. He's been doing interviews, hanging out with French Montana, his longtime collaborator, going to events, shooting music videos. Basically, he's been trying to remind the world, I'm back. But here's the thing, loves. The streets don't forget. The industry doesn't forgive easily. And when you're on parole for 5 years, like Max's reportedly is, every single move you make is under a microscope. One wrong step, you're back inside. One public altercation, done. So Max has been moving carefully, staying low-key, trying to avoid controversy. Which is why what happened at Madison Square Garden is so shocking. All right, so let's get into the MSG situation because this is where everything starts to unravel. According to multiple reports and eyewitness accounts, Max and French attended a New York Knicks game at Madison Square Garden. Now, this should have been a fun night out, right? Two New York legends enjoying some basketball, soaking in the atmosphere, maybe getting some camera time, normal celebrity stuff. But that is not what happened. Word on the street is that Max and friends were sitting in seats that were allegedly reserved, seats that they either didn't have tickets for or that belonged to someone else. Now, whether this was a mix-up, a mistake, or something more intentional, we don't know yet. But here's where it gets messy. Security at MSG reportedly descended on them like a SWAT team. I'm talking multiple guards surrounding them, making a whole scene in front of thousands of fans and cameras. And they were removed from the arena. Now, child, imagine being Max B. You just got out of prison after more than a decade. You're trying to rebuild your career, your reputation, your life. You go to a Knicks game to enjoy yourself, and you get publicly escorted out like you're some kind of threat? The humiliation, the embarrassment. And of course, because this is 2025 and everybody has a phone, the footage started spreading immediately. Social media lit up. People were posting videos, screenshots, commentary. Some folks were clowning Max, saying he got, quote, exposed. Others were defending him, saying it was just a simple mistake blown out of proportion. And French Montana, allegedly, was also caught up in this, which makes it even more confusing because French is well connected in the industry. Like, this man has relationships everywhere. So for both of them to get kicked out,
Something doesn't add up. Now, I know what some of y'all are thinking. Maybe they were just in the wrong seats. It happens. And sure, that's possible. But here's the thing, loves. When you're a celebrity, especially someone like Max B, who's trying to stay out of trouble, these mistakes hit different. Because now the narrative becomes, oh, Max B can't even go to a basketball game to cause problems. And that narrative, loves, is dangerous for someone on parole. Reports said that Max's team is trying to downplay the situation, calling it a misunderstanding and saying that there's no bad blood with MSG. But the internet doesn't care about clarifications. The damage is done. And just when you think it can't get worse, the Boston situation entered the chat. Okay, so while Max is dealing with the MSG fallout, a video surfaces online that is absolutely chilling. In this video, a man claiming to be a Boston goon, and I'm using that term loosely because nobody knows who this man is actually, issues are what can only be described as a threat to Max B. He says, and I'm paraphrasing here, that if Max B is planning to come to Boston, he needs to, quote, check in, and if he doesn't, there will be consequences. Now, for those who don't know, check-in is street terminology. It basically means you contact the local street figures, show respect, let them know you're coming, and make sure there's no issues. It's like asking for permission to enter someone else's territory. But here's the problem. Max B is a rapper. He's not a gang member on active duty. He's not rolling into Boston to start trouble. He's there for shows, for business, for his career. So for some random person to demand that Max B, quote, check in is not only disrespectful, but is also completely out of pocket. Like, who are you? And the way this man delivered the message, Malice, paper, then I hope God don't touch Boston. We need that ASAP. It sounded like a mafia warning. It sounded like a movie. This isn't a movie. This is real life. And Max B is a real person trying to navigate a real career. Now, immediately after this video drop, content creators and fans started investigating. And guess what? They found, loves, nothing. Nobody in Boston's actual street circles knew who this man was. No verified connections, no credibility, no real reputation. He's literally just some random guy trying to use Max B's name to build his own clout. And creators started calling him out, saying that he's a clout-chasing internet soldier who's trying to manufacture a street war for beeves and attention. And honestly, that's exactly what it looks like. But here's the thing that makes this situation dangerous, loves. Even if this guy is fake, even if he has zero real power, the threat is out there now. It's public. It's on the internet. And if something happens to Max B in Boston, anything at all, this video is going to be the first thing people reference. And for Max, who is on parole and trying to stay out of trouble, this puts him in an impossible position. Does he ignore it and risk looking weak? Does he address it and give the person more attention? Does he cancel his Boston appearances and let fear dictate his career? There's no good answer. It's a lose-lose situation. And allegedly, Max's team is taking this seriously. They're reportedly looking into security measures, vetting who's around Max at all times, and making sure this doesn't escalate. But the tension is real, and it's not going away anytime soon. Now, let's talk about PD7. Because honestly, this album has become a legend in its own right, and not in a good way. Loves, I cannot tell you how many times Max B and his team have teased this album. Black Friday 2024. PD7's dropping. Didn't happen. Then it was supposed to be the following Tuesday. Didn't happen. Then another countdown started, and guess what? Didn't happen. At this point, PD7 is starting to feel Dr. Dre's Detox, the mythical album that everyone talks about that nobody actually believes will ever come out. Fans are begging. I'm talking full-on desperation in the comments. Max, please, just drop it. We're dying out here. And the theories. Oh, the theories, child. Oh, the theories. Some people think there's a music industry conspiracy blocking the album. They're saying that certain labels or executives don't want Max to succeed because his success would shift power dynamics in New York hip-hop. Others think the delays are due to legal clearance issues from his incarceration era, that some of the music samples or collaborations can't be cleared because of his past legal troubles. Then there's the theory that Max himself is holding it back because he's a perfectionist and wants everything to be perfect before he releases it. But here's what I think, and I'm just speculating here. I think it's a combination of all of these things. I think there are legal issues. I think there are industry politics that play, and I also think Max is being extremely cautious because he knows this album is his shot at a real comeback. If PD7 flops, that's it. His second chance is gone, so the pressure is immense. But at the same time, the longer he waits, the more hype dies down. The more people lose interest, the more the narrative becomes Max B can't deliver. It's a vicious cycle. And honestly, I feel for him because I genuinely believe he wants to drop this album, but something or someone is stopping him. And until we get official answers, the speculation is just going to keep building.
Story 4. Max B and French Montana's secret video shoot. Okay, so in the middle of all this chaos, something interesting happened that actually gave fans a little bit of hope. Leaked clips started circulating online showing Max B and French Montana on what appears to be a music video set. And from what people could see, it looked like they were shooting something for Coke Wave 3.5, a project that fans have been wanting for years. The vibe in the clips? Classic. Like old school Max and French energy. The chemistry was there, the aesthetic was right, and people were genuinely hyped. Now, nobody knows when this video is dropping, or if it's even officially confirmed, but the fact that Max and French are still working together, still creating, still pushing forward despite all the drama, that says something. It says Max isn't giving up. He's not letting the MSG situation, the Boston threads, or the PD7 delays completely derail him. He's still in the studio. He's still shooting content. He's still fighting for his comeback. And honestly, Les, that's what you have to do in this industry. You have to keep moving forward even when everything feels like it's falling apart. So while the leaked video footage might seem like a small thing compared to everything else happening, I actually think it's one of the most important pieces of this whole story, because it shows resilience. And if Max can channel that resilience into his music, into PD7 or Coke Wave 3.5 or whatever he drops next, he might just pull off the comeback of the decade. Story 5. The secret war between Max B and Sin City. Finally exposed. All right. Now we're getting into some deep hip-hop history that a lot of people don't know about. For years, and I mean years, there's been whispers in the hip-hop community about tension between Max B and an artist named Sin City. Now, if you don't know who Sin City is, let me give you some context. Sin City is a melodic rapper who came up under Jim Jones in the Dipset umbrella. And his style? Pause. It's very similar to Max B's. In fact, a lot of people accused Sin City of being a Max B clone, of copying his flow, his melodies, his whole vibe. And when Max was locked up and couldn't defend his lane, Sin City, allegedly, stepped in and filled that void. So you can imagine how Max felt. Empathetic tone. He's in prison, watching from behind bars as someone else takes his sound, his style, his blueprint, and runs with it. Fans picked up on the tension immediately. They started comparing the two artists, arguing about who did it better, who was more authentic. And it created this silent war that nobody wanted to openly address. Max, allegedly, felt like people were stealing from him while he couldn't do anything about it. And Sin City, allegedly, felt like he was just doing his own thing and getting unfairly attacked. It was messy, shaking my head, really messy. But here's where the story takes a shocking turn. Cameron, the legendary Dipset leader, recently addressed this beef publicly for the first time, and what he revealed? Dramatic pause. It completely flipped the narrative. Cam said that Max B was watching his podcast from jail, that Max reached out to him, that Max explicitly said he has no beef with Sin City and actually sent love to him. Child, scund tone, the beef that fans thought was this deep, personal, career-defining rivalry, Max himself said it doesn't exist. Now, whether you believe that or not is up to you. Some people think Max is just being diplomatic because he's on parole and can't afford drama. Others think he genuinely moved past it and realizes that holding grudges from prison doesn't help anyone. But either way, Cameron stepping in to publicly squash this was huge because it shut down years of speculation and fan-fueled beef in one fell swoop.
That said, the internet refuses to let it go. People are still out here making comparison videos, still debating who's better, still trying to stir up drama that the actual artists have moved past. And that's the thing about hip-hop beef, loves. Sometimes the fans want it more than the artists themselves. Story 6. Cameron versus the Podcast Alliance, the hate conspiracy. Okay, so while all of this is going on, Cameron drops an absolute bomb on his podcast that sends shockwaves through the hip-hop media world. He goes on a rant, and I mean a full-blown, no-holds-barred rant, accusing Meno, Fablos, and Day East of forming a hate alliance against him and Mace. Like, their entire friendship is built on mutual hate. He calls the whole thing fake. Since they don't actually like each other, they've just bonded over their dislike of him. And then, he drops the nuke. He claims that Jim Jones once pressed Meno early in his career, that there was a confrontation, a power move, something that Meno and his crew have been trying to keep quiet for years. Now, this is huge because it adds a whole layer of history and context that the public didn't know about. It explains why there might be lingering tension, why these podcast wars are so personal, why people are taking shots at each other on air. And the fact that Cameron brought it up publicly, serious pause, that's a violation of street code. You don't expose someone's past embarrassments like that unless you're ready for war. Meno and his team allegedly were furious. Some people say they felt blindsided. Others say they always knew Cam would eventually bring it up. But either way, this revelation destroyed the brotherhood narrative that their podcast was trying to build, because now people are looking at them sideways, wondering what else is fake, what else is being hidden. And in the world of podcasting, where authenticity is everything, that's a death sentence. Okay, story 7. AKD unleashes a brutal attack. Now, if you thought Cameron's rant was brutal, you haven't heard what Akademiks said yet, because Akademiks, never one to miss the opportunity to stir the pot, came out swinging with one of the most savage roast sessions I've seen in a minute. He starts by calling their podcast the 4S Pod, which I'm assuming is some kind of insult I don't fully understand, but it sounded disrespectful. But then he goes in on their fashion, says they dress like teenagers trying to relive their 20s, mocking tone, calls out Fab's headband specifically, calling it a midlife crisis accessory. Child, I screamed. But the most brutal part, he calls Meno scary despite having a documented gun reputation. Now that's a wild accusation to make, especially about someone who's known for being about that life. And Meno, he did not let that slide. He fires back immediately, calling Akademiks, and I quote, a wet bag of laundry and a jar of relish with glasses. Come on, what a jar of relish with glasses. That is creative disrespect right there. The internet, predictably, exploded. People were taking sides, making memes, clipping the exchanges, and spreading them everywhere. And honestly, this is exactly what Akademiks wanted, because love him or hate him, the man knows how to create content. He knows how to get people talking, how to stay relevant, how to make himself the center of attention. But here's the deeper issue, loves. Serious tone. Allegedly, Akademiks has always been intimidated by Meno because of his street credibility. Akademiks is a media personality, not a street guy. So when he's going back and forth with someone like Meno, there's always this underlying fear that things could escalate beyond words. And that's what makes the situation so tense. Because it's not just jokes and insults. There's real history, real reputations, real stakes involved. So while we're all laughing at the jar of relish line, there's a part of me that wonders, where does this go from here? Insider info, dark details, the conspiracy theories. All right, now let's talk about the stuff that's happening behind the scenes. The rumors, the whispers, the things that people are saying but can't quite confirm. First, there's the PD7 situation. Multiple insiders have allegedly said that the delays are not just creative or logistical. There's apparently some serious legal clearance issues tied to Max's incarceration. Word is, some of the samples he wants to use, some of the features he wants on the album, they can't get clear because of his legal past. And the lawyers are being extremely cautious because one wrong move could violate his parole terms. Now, I can't confirm this, but if it's true, sympathetic tone, that explains so much, because Max isn't just trying to drop an album, he's trying to do it while navigating a legal minefield. Second, there's the Boston situation. Creators have been digging into this, say that guy making the threats is allegedly trying to launch a fake street reputation online using Max B's name. They're saying he's a cloud chaser, someone who saw an opportunity to go viral by inserting himself into Max B's narrative, and unfortunately, it worked, because now we're all talking about him. Third, the podcast wars. There's allegedly a lot of jealousy behind the scenes because Cam and Mace's podcast became huge, and other podcasters feel like they stole the spotlight. So when you see these attacks, these alliances, these public call-outs,
Deeper analysis, why this matters. Okay, so let's step back for a second and talk about what all of this really means. Because on the surface, this looks like typical hip-hop drama. But when you dig deeper, there's actually a lot more going on. First, this is a story about second chances. Max B spent over a decade in prison. He lost his career, his prime years, his momentum. And now he's trying to claw it all back in an industry that's completely different from when he left. Streaming has changed the game. Social media has changed the game. The culture has changed. And Max is trying to adapt while also staying true to who he is. That's hard, loves. That's really, really hard. Second, this is a story about the price of fame. Max can't even go to a basketball game without it turning into a scandal. He can't travel to another city without random people making threats. He can't delay an album without people accusing him of being a failure. Every move he makes is scrutinized, dissected, judged. And for someone who's already dealing with the trauma of incarceration and the pressure of parole, that's an immense psychological burden. Third, this is a story about hip-hop politics. The podcast wars, the industry conspiracies, the beef between artists, all of it is connected to larger power struggles about who controls the narrative, who gets the spotlight, who makes the money. And Max is caught in the middle of all of it, whether he wants to be or not. Fourth, this is a story about the internet. Because 10, 15 years ago, none of this would have blown up the way it has. The MSG incident would have been a private embarrassment. The Boston threats would have stayed in the streets. The podcast drama would have been handled behind closed doors. But now, everything is public. Everything is permanent. Every mistake, every rumor, every accusation lives forever online. And that changes the stakes completely. So when we're watching this Max B saga unfold, we're not just watching one man's comeback story. We're watching a case study on how fame, trauma, technology, and hip-hop culture collide in 2025. And honestly, I don't know how it's going to end. I hope Max pulls through. I hope PD7 drops and it's incredible. I hope he finds peace and success and gets to enjoy his second chance. But the road ahead, it's not going to be easy. Synthesis and payoff, bringing it all together. So let's bring all of this together because we've covered a lot in this video. We've got Max B publicly humiliated at Madison Square Garden, kicked out in front of thousands with footage spreading across the internet. We've got a random Boston goon making mafia-style threats, demanding Max check in or face consequences, even though nobody knows who this person actually is.
We've got PD7, the album that's been delayed so many times it's becoming a meme, with fans convinced there's a conspiracy blocking its release. We've got leaked footage of Max and France shooting a video for Coke Wave 3.5, giving fans a glimmer of hope in the middle of all of this chaos. We've got Cameron exposing a years-long secret beef between Max B and Sin City, revealing that Max actually has no issue with him, despite what fans thought. We've got Cameron also going to war with an alleged hate alliance of podcasters, accusing them of building a fake friendship just to target him. And we've got Akademiks unleashing brutal insults, calling people jars of relish and wet bags of laundry. Well, Emmanuel fires back with equal venom. It's chaos, loves. Absolute chaos. But here's what it all comes down to. Max B is at a crossroads. He can let all of this drama consume him, derail his comeback, and waste his second chance. Or he can rise above it, focus on the music, and prove that he's still the way of God everyone remembers. The talent is there. The history is there. The legend is there. But legends don't mean anything if you can't deliver when it counts. And right now, Max B needs to deliver. He needs to drop PD7. He needs to stay out of trouble. He needs to ignore the noise, avoid the distractions, and remind the world why he matters. Because if he doesn't, all of this, the MSG scandal, the Boston threats, the podcast wars, the delays, it all becomes his legacy instead of just a chapter in his comeback story. And that would be a tragedy. So, yeah, Livs, that's where we are right now with the Max B saga. Honestly, I don't even know what to expect next. Every time I think the drama's died down, something new happens. It's like a never-ending cycle of chaos. But here's what I want to know from you. Do you think Max B can actually pull off this comeback? Do you believe PD7 is really coming, or is it going to be delayed forever like Detox? Do you think the MSG situation was a genuine mistake, or was there something more going on behind the scenes? And what about these Boston threats? Are they real, or just some random cloud chaser trying to go viral off Max's name? Let me know in the comments section below. I want to hear your thoughts, your theories, your predictions, because this story is far from over. If you enjoyed this deep dive into all the Max B drama, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates. Because trust me, there's going to be more. I've also got videos coming up on the full history of the Dipset podcast wars, the rise and fall of melodic rap, and a breakdown of why album rollouts keep failing in 2025. So stay tuned for all of that. Thank you so much for watching, loves. I appreciate every single one of you who made it all the way to the end. Your support means everything. All right, I'm out. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.
So here's where I want to introduce a concept, something I've been thinking about ever since the GNX drop, something that explains everything we've been talking about. I call it controlled chaos dominance. And here's what it means. Most artists operate in one of two modes. They're either predictable, album every 2 years, singles before the drop, rollout, tour, repeat, or they're chaotic, dropping whenever, chasing trends, scrambling for relevance. Kendrick, he's neither, and he's both. He's chaotic in the sense that you never know when he's coming. GNX dropped out of nowhere. Not Like Us came out of nowhere. He doesn't follow a schedule. He doesn't do rollouts. He just appears. But it's controlled chaos. Every move is intentional. Every silence is strategic. Every drop is designed to maximize impact and minimize competition. That's controlled chaos dominance. You create the illusion of unpredictability, but behind the scenes, everything is planned down to the second. And when you master that, you become untouchable. Because here's the thing. Predictable artists get tuned out. People know when your album's coming, so they wait. They don't engage until release week. And by then, the hype's already dying. Chaotic artists get ignored because if you're dropping every week, if you're chasing every trend, people stop caring. You become noise. But controlled chaos, that's event-level artistry. That's when every move you make becomes a moment because nobody saw it coming, but it's so good, so complete that it dominates everything. That's what Kendrick's doing. That's the strategy. And 2026 is when he takes it to the absolute limit. Walk with me here for a second. If Kendrick drops GNX Deluxe in March, tours through summer, drops Chapter 2 in September, tours through fall, and then caps it off with the Paramount film in December, he owns the entire year. Every moment, every conversation, every headline. Nobody else gets air, nobody else matters. That's controlled chaos dominance. And it's unstoppable. But let's go even deeper, because this isn't just about strategy. This is about psychology. What Kendrick is doing, allegedly, according to sources, is manipulating the entire industry sense of time and relevance. Let me explain. In today's music industry, artists are terrified of being forgotten, so they drop constantly. They stay in your face. They do interviews, podcasts, features, TikToks, whatever it takes to stay visible. But what that does is train the audience to take you for granted. You're always there, so you're never special. Kendrick does the opposite. He disappears for months, sometimes over a year. And during that time, the anticipation builds. People start wondering, is he done? Is he working on something? What's he thinking about? And then when he finally returns, it's not just music, it's a cultural event. Because you missed him. Because you forgot what it felt like to hear him. Because the silence made you hungry. That's psychological warfare. That's using absence as a weapon. And it's devastatingly effective. But here's where it gets even more calculated. By holding 80 to 100 songs in the vault, Kendrick has created something that no other artist has. Infinite optionality. And what that means is that he can respond to anything. If another artist drops a surprise album, Kendrick can counter with the deluxe. If the culture shifts, he can pivot. If someone tries to steal his moment, he can drop a single and crush them. He's not locked into a timeline. He's not beholden to a label schedule. He's not stuck waiting for his songs to be finished. He's ready, always, for anything. And that creates a chilling effect across the entire industry. Because if you're an artist trying to plan a release, you have to ask yourself, what if Kendrick drops that week? And the answer is, you're screwed. So what do? You avoid him. You wait. You hope he stays quiet. You fear him. And that fear, that's power. Real, tangible power, the kind you can't buy, you can't fake, you can't shortcut your way into. Just remember, every artist who's tried to go head-to-head with Kendrick in the past 5 years has lost. Drake, career altered forever. Big Scene, ghosted. J. Cole, apologized. Nobody wins. And now, with this alleged 2026 plan, he's not even giving people the chance to compete. But let's talk about the Hollywood angle for a second, because that's the piece people aren't talking about enough. Kendrick isn't the first rapper to do movies, obviously. We've seen it before. But he's the first to have this much control, the first to make the studio bend to his schedule.
And what that signals to me is that he's thinking long term, not just about 2026, about the next decade. Because if he can establish himself as a Hollywood power player while dominating music, he becomes something bigger than a rapper. He becomes a mogul, a brand, a cultural institution. Think about it. Music, film, touring, merchandise, partnerships, investments. He's building an empire. Not loudly, not in your face, but methodically. And the thing is, he doesn't need to do press tours or interviews to make it work. The work speaks for itself. The music is undeniable. The film will be undeniable. The tour will be undeniable. He doesn't have to convince you of anything. You just submit. Because the quality is so high, deficient is so clear that resistance feels pointless. That's what 2026 is about. That's the final stage of this entire plan. Not just winning, not just dominating, but establishing a level of creative and commercial power that will echo for the rest of his career. And honestly, I don't think people are ready for it. Because we've gotten used to artists to being accessible. We've gotten used to them needing us, needing our approval, needing our streams and likes and comments. Kendrick doesn't need any of that. He already won. Gen X proved it. The Super Bowl proved it. The Drake situation proved it. He's operating from a position of absolute strength, and 2026 is just him flexing. Now, obviously, the internet has thoughts about all of this, and reactions are all over the place. You've got people who are hype, people who are skeptical, people who are straight up terrified for their favorite artists. Let's break it down. On one side, you've got the Kendrick fans, and I'm talking the diehards, who have been saying this was coming for years. They saw the signs, the silence, the strategy, the refusal to play the game. One tweet that one of else said, y'all thought Kendrick was quiet because he was done. Nah, he was learning to clip. 2026 is going to be a massacre. And honestly, facts. That's exactly what this feels like. But then you got the skeptics. The people saying, okay, but where's the proof? We don't have confirmation on the vault. We don't have confirmation on the Paramount delay. This is all just rumors. And look, fair, I get it. We're dealing with insider reports, industry whispers, sources that can't go on record, so yeah, take it with a grain of salt. But here's the thing. Even if half of this is true, it's still the biggest power move in recent hip-hop history. Even if it's 50 songs instead of 100, even if the film isn't delayed but just adjusted, it's still wild. And then you've got the third group, other artists and their fans. And they're nervous. Because if you're dropping in 2026, you're now looking over your shoulder. You're wondering if Kendrick's going to drop that week. You're wondering if your moment is about to get swallowed whole. I saw one comment that said, at this point, every rapper should just ask Kendrick a release calendar so they know when it's safe to drop. I mean, it's funny, but it's kind of true. On the other hand, some people are saying this is healthy for hip-hop, that we need someone operating at this level. Someone who refuses to compromise, refuses to play the algorithm game, refuses to drop mid just to stay relevant. And honestly, I'm inclined to agree, because Kendrick's existence forces everyone else to level up or get left behind. All right, so let's talk receipts.